Welcome everyone to part one of Design a Game with me. So I decided to actually put my shit together and decide to actually build a game. Now this has been something I wanted to do for the last, I would say, probably couple, 3-4 decades. I'm 35, so the last 35 years I've been wanting to build a game. Yes, since I was new. Anyway, so yeah, I want to build a game, and one thing I always wanted to build was an incredible strategy game. And I have a lot of things that kind of I want to build, and we're going to actually talk about that over the next couple of episodes. So the first thing I wanted to do is kind of like lock down the platform that I want to develop on. And as you can see here, I pulled up a couple of links based upon the research I want to do, and kind of like I have a general idea, but I want to kind of break down the figures that I got from numerous websites on the internet. So the 2018 global games market, when you break it down, was 70.3 billion for mobile games. That's a combination of tablet and smartphone games. The PC market, which is Windows and Mac, is 32.9 billion. Right? And then console is 34.6 billion. So looking at this, I've been a PC gamer since my single digits. So looking at this, you can clearly see that the actual game market is dominated by mobile, and then console, and then last PC. And that's 51% of the market, which is a lot. The other couple of things I wanted to go on is another website that I came across, Statistica, which kind of breaks down the most important gaming platforms in 2019. This is the number of game developers most interested in or currently developing for the following platforms, which is really interesting considering the stats that we just looked at. Developers are most interested in developing PC games, even though it is behind mobile and console games. And there are currently developing 66%, more so than any other platform, which is kind of really interesting when you kind of like look at this here, because the mobile market is, as you can see, number one, and they're currently developing 38%, but PC is almost double that, so that's pretty interesting. Now, another kind of, I would say, thing that I wanted to kind of narrow down is what platform should I go into? One of the things that I wanted to kind of breaking down all these different markets, all these different platforms, I'm kind of leaning toward PC. And the reason I kind of want to lean toward those platforms is because, well, like I said before, I grew up with the PC, from, the 80s, and I'm very comfortable with the keyboard and mouse. Now, I'm a big mobile gamer too, and so the smartphone and tablet market appeal to me a great deal. However, what I'm thinking of doing is developing the game that I have in mind first for the personal computer, right? And then if it works out, then I would transition that to smartphones and tablets. Now, the biggest thing here, which is kind of interesting here, is PC. I'm assuming they're breaking this down PC-wise as Windows, because personal computer means everything. It means Windows, Mac, and Linux. But it looks like here they're just saying, hey, PC as in Windows. And then you have the Mac down here, which it looks like what's interesting is 20% are currently developing for Mac, which is really interesting. So, yeah, that's interesting. It's definitely a platform that I want to develop for because I use a Mac every day. So the next slide I wanted to show you kind of illustrates a couple other things. So the operating system of market share here, you have Windows, Mac, and Linux. So if you break this down, how many people have what operating system? So 87.44 of the world uses Windows. 9.74, including me, uses Mac, and then 2.16 uses Linux, and then less than 1% everybody else. Chrome, really. Anyway, so yeah, that's interesting figures here. So Mac contains almost about 10% of the market. And then when you kind of break it down even further here, so based upon all the people that use Steam, they broke this down into the market share for this. So it looks like 66.92 of the people on Steam use Windows 10. Now, Steam is the platform that I actually want to dive into. This is the platform where I want to publish my game on. So, literally almost 3 out of 4 people play on Windows 10, and then 23.79 play on Windows 7, and then 3.26 on 8.1. Then Windows 7 32-bit is 1.31, and if you go all the way here on the Mac side, it's 1.27. And then the last operating system for Mac, which is, I believe this is High Sierra, is 0.65. So, breaking this down, it looks like I have to make this game multi-operating system. So I definitely want to put it on Mac because I own a Mac and I want to play it on the computer that I own. So yeah, that's important for me. Then definitely Windows 10, and then Windows 7, and then I'm probably not even going to worry about 8.1 or 7 32-bit compatibility. So I'm not even going to worry about those 4%. I'm just going to focus on Mac, Windows 10 64-bit, and Windows 7 64-bit. So I'm going to focus on those 2 key aspects in terms of platform. So my idea here, my roadmap that I'm planning is make the game designed for Windows 10 64-bit and then Windows 7 64-bit. I'm not going to worry about 8.1 or 7 on 32-bit. So just if I can get that to work on those platforms, compatibility, that'll be great. If not, I'm not going to sweat it. I definitely want to put it on Mac because I use Mac day to day, and then Windows 10 and Windows 7 to reach that larger audience of that's pretty much going to be literally almost 90% of the actual 9 out of 10 gamers, right? So I want to actually get my game out to as many people that can play it. So that's what I'm going to do. First, I am going to build the game for the personal computer in the capacity of Mac, Windows 10, and then Windows 7 64-bit. And then after I can publish it to that platform, then I'm going to see if I can start customizing the game to move on to the smartphone platform and then eventually maybe console down the road. So that's what I'm thinking of. If you guys do have any comments, please put them in the text box below. I would love to get your feedback, especially if you're a developer, because I love thriving on feedback. Now, before you guys jump onto the comments here and start saying, hey, listen, don't design for Mac, don't worry about Linux. These are platforms that I really love. I love Mac and I love Linux. I want to develop for these platforms. Even if it's 1 out of 100 people that use Mac and less than 1 out of 100 that use Linux, I want to develop for these platforms because I love Mac more than I love Windows. And if Mac didn't exist, I would go to Linux. That's the way I am. I've worked for both companies, so it's not like I'm biased toward Microsoft or, that's, people call me like, oh, you're a fanboy of Apple. No, I've worked for Microsoft. I've worked for Apple. I've used Windows since the 80s, and I just like it on the Mac side, on the Apple side. So, everybody has their own kind of thing. All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick look. I'm going to make more episodes, and I'm planning to release like 1 a week or maybe 2 a week, depending on how busy I am. So let me know in the comments your feedback. Catch you guys in the next one.